What's going on, everybody? Gentleman94 here. Welcome back to Ben Builds, and this is the Kylo Ren Lightsaber Hilt Rebuild, Episode 5. This should be the final episode. We're going to finish this bad boy up and get it ready for Halloween. Halloween is tomorrow, so I got to finish this up and get this thing out to you guys so you can see what I come up with and how I get this finished up. So we want to go ahead and work on the emitters today for the side of the lightsaber. We want to get the wire hooked in. We want to get the insulator hooked in at the bottom. The first thing we're really going to have to fool with is how to get some of these parts and pieces glued into there. We've got some 5-minute epoxy ready to go for that. We've got the red wire that's airbrushed and ready to rock. We have the hole drilled here so we can fit this through. And I'm going to have to figure out a way to tack this wire down to the hilt itself, but I don't really want to use glue. I could use like some sort of epoxy or some super glue. I could do a whole lot of different ways to get this wire attached to the hilt. But I have a better idea that requires some holes to be drilled in the hilt, but also to use wire that looks more authentic to the actual prototype that they made for the movie. We're going to have to see how that works out. I also want to get this insulator glued into the bottom here by using some 5-minute epoxy. So I'm going to go ahead and start there, and I'll be right back, show you what I got. Okay guys, so here we go. I've glued this in. You can see the belt clip here, the studs. We have epoxied this in, and this is ready to go. Now, the trouble we're going to be having here is, it's going to be kind of bottom heavy. We have to worry about the emitters, and that's the next thing. I'm hoping to kind of balance out the weight a bit by using some metal for the emitters. And here's the thing. I'm actually going to be using these. These are 11/16 just regular old socket set. I've got a ton of these for some odd reason. I've got a ton of 11/16 and they fit perfectly right up inside where the emitters will go. I think this is going to be just fine. I'm not too worried about how it looks. I think it looks the part. Now, if we notice here, there's a bit of a lip. I've removed the lip on this side. As you can see, it slides right through it. This is going to be really helpful. I want to remove the lip on the other side. I'm going to do that with a file. It's not a jeweler file. It's a standard file that's slightly curved, so it fits well in the curvature of the side vent itself. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to be able to push that emitter as close to the edge of the vent cover as I can. And this is kind of what I've come up with right here. As you can see, they're right up close to the vent, and I think they look the part. They've got the ridges built into them. It's metal, so it has a little bit of weight, and I think it looks pretty sharp. So, of course, we're going to have to come back in and paint all that and get everything weathered down, but I think it's going to be a really good base for what we're going to do with the rest of the lightsaber. Okay, so I went ahead and epoxied the areas there up at the emitters. Those are all glued in, and it's actually feeling a little light in the middle. So I want to put some extra weight in here. To do that, I wanted to use some very basic copper BBs. So I've got a tube of that, and I've got some Elmer's school glue. So first things first, let's go ahead and just pour some of this school glue right down inside of the center section. And this is going to help to kind of balance the weight between the front and the back. Because in the back, I've got that, heavy nuts and bolts. And the top, I have the emitters that are the basic socket sets, and those are heavy too. So I'm going to pour some of these BBs in the middle and just kind of spread them around, and that should help kind of distribute the weight evenly and give it a bit more heft. So the next step I want to do is take a look at the belt clip itself. And I worked on this last episode, but here's the thing. It's going to be mounted to an actual leather belt that's going to be going around my waist for Kylo Ren. I want to put a backing on this. I'm just taking my scissors to this, and I'm just going to cut this out of the styrene. A single piece of styrene isn't secure enough, I don't feel like. So what I want to do is I want to cut this up, clean this out. And this is a close-up here. We have the two pieces of styrene sandwiched together. You can see that they're not quite even. So I've got my sanding block out here, and I'm going to take this piece, and I'm just going to sand down and even out all the edges. I want this to be as secure, stable, and stiff as possible without adding an extra weight. I think this is going to be a good move to make. Honestly, the styrene is eaten so quickly by this sandpaper. This is some rough stuff, and it will just dissolve styrene like no one's business. So this shouldn't take more than a few swipes. Now I'm going to go ahead and test fit this together. Let me make sure that these screws fit right on in there and show what I've got. So as you can see, I'm not going to put on the third backing here. I'm just going to do 2 plus the belt clip. And I'm just going to screw these down to keep them all together in one piece. And then I'll go back and I'm going to airbrush this a gloss black. Okay, so everything is together now. And here we are. This is how it stands. And this should fit right on here. And it should be perfectly flush and hang right on my belt. So that's the plan. Now we got to paint it. So I went ahead and mixed up a nice mixture of Tamiya gloss black with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, 70% isopropyl, and I'm just airbrushing this whole belt clip black. And we are looking good. I've airbrushed this whole thing black, and I'm going to go over it with some future floor polish and make sure that it's really safely protected. I'm only doing the top part that's exposed so people can see it. The bottom part, I'm not going to paint. I'm going to leave that alone because that's going to be sandwiched against the belt itself, so no one's going to see it. So we're just going to keep on going, show what I got at the end. Okay, so now we have to paint the bottom cap for the lightsaber. And I'm going to use this flat red. And this should be decent enough. A very easy mixture. Gunzy paint. You can use isopropyl alcohol. I have to paint the inside of it black though. So that I probably should have done when I had the black paint out for the belt clip. But we're going to hit that and get this thing looking sharp. Okay, so I'm just basically airbrushing this flat red. I really want to get this good coverage. And after it's dry, I'm going to come back and overcoat it with Future. Okay, now that all that is drying, I wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about what's next to paint. Okay, so I'm going to be using this gloss black for the shell of the hilt. I'm also going to be using some silver color here for the side emitter vent covers. I wanted to use, let's see, where is it? Vallejo. I wanted to use this Vallejo color here. I think that's going to be a great color to use for the vents. And I want to do somewhat of a burned metal effect on that. So that's going to require me to really be very careful. I want to use some of this clear blue to give it that nice kind of burnt metal look. I also have some of this copper color, which is really cool. I do have steel red. I'm not really going to use it, but I have it just for some variation in color. All right, I have some gloss black mixed up in the airbrush, and we're going to go ahead and start overcoating this entire hilt with this gloss black. And I'm going to cover every inch of this thing. I'm going to go over all of the silver parts, all of the inlaid areas. I'm going to go over any nicks that I might have made that I covered and went ahead and filled. I'm going to go over everything. I want this to be as uniform black as it possibly can be. Now I'm going to come back and weather it. I'm going to weather it with that bronze copperish color. I'm going to weather it with some black and maybe some silver as well. So I think overall it's going to look pretty sharp when I finish with it. But the first thing is I got to get this base coat of black down. So I'm going to do that. I'll be right back, show you how it turns out. Alright guys, so while the other is drying, I decided I'm going to go ahead and paint the side emitter vent covers. I'm going to use this Vallejo silver color that we have, and I really am making some nice sweeping passes, not trying to get it, too heavy coated. I want it to be a light coat, but I also want it to be durable. And Vallejo makes some pretty decent metallizing type colors, so this is going to be excellent looking. And this is a chrome. The Vallejo Chrome. So I'm going to go ahead and cover both of these vent covers with this Vallejo Chrome, and we'll come back and we'll move on to the next section that we have to paint. Alright, so here we go. This is what the lightsaber looks like currently. It's got the vents installed that are silver, it's got everything painted gloss black, and it's got the red bottom cap. And that's also been covered in a future floor polish. So this is looking decent. Now I got to come back though, and I have to work on the burned metal effect here on the side vents. And that should be difficult, but I'm hoping that I can use those colors I talked about before and get a nice appearance. Now dry brushing is pretty simple. You take your paintbrush, you dip it in your paint, wipe most of it off, and then just drag the almost dry paintbrush across raised panels or details you want to be highlighted. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and go over the majority of the lightsaber hilt and hit all the raised panels, anywhere where his gloves would have held on tightly to the handle or anything like that. It's going to all be weathered down using this really cool, awesome copper color. This also fits better with the model that I've seen online too. And I'm just going to be covering over all the little raised surfaces, all the places that could wear, against maybe his cloaks, or maybe when he's constantly handling it, he's wearing the paint off slowly. So I want to doctor it up a little bit and get it looking a little bit more used. Not too abused, just used, lightly used. That's kind of what I'm going for. Now, if you've ever seen anything like maybe a performance exhaust or a motorcycle's exhaust, it's something that's been heated up repeatedly and then cooled and heated up and cooled. Usually you get this kind of a burnt metal appearance. And I want these to be very similar to that, because I think all the plasma venting out the side of the lightsaber would initially burn off the paint, and it would cause it to be heated up and cooled and heated and cooled. So I want to do that same effect. Now I'm going to be using this clear blue, and I'm going to be making a solid line, and I'm going to try to feather it into the silver and then into the copper color I'm going to put on next to that, and then finally into the black. So I want to kind of feather everything together, blend it so that it looks the part. So I'm going to continue off camera, and we'll see what I come up with. Okay, and here we go. This is as they stand now. You can see the blue, you can see the darkened blue, almost purple, and you can see it fading into the copper color. Now I've put them back on the lightsaber hilt, and I'm going to go in with black because black is the majority of the lightsaber color. So I want to go ahead and kind of fade in the blue, copper, and the silver color with the black of the lightsaber. So I'm just going to slowly feather the black paint. I'm going to start thick and dark by the beginning of this, and I'm going to feather it lightly out into the other colors. And then I'll just go over the other colors as well with the black and hopefully tone it all down so that everything matches. I might have to take some silver back to the tip of it as well, but we'll get to that a little bit later. I'm also going to kind of tone down a bit of the weathering in certain areas so it doesn't look too heavy-handed. It's a lot of fun. Let's hope it works. So the belt clip is dry. I went ahead and painted it, and I futured it, and it is ready for the basic test fit. I'm also going to hit it with a little bit of this top coat flat because it is super shiny. That future floor polish really gives anything a really good sheen. And I went ahead and also airbrushed over the different areas. I shot some silver around the vent caps, and I also shot some inside to the emitter. And I also kind of want to take a little bit of some weathering powder and kind of shove it around in there, give it some soot. This I'm going to use, of course, the AIM weathering powder. I love this stuff, dark gray. I'm going to go ahead and smash it all the way up inside and on the top of the emitter too. I want to get this looking a little bit like soot, like burnt soot. So that should be an interesting look. So you can see the bottom here. We got the top cap on. It's all painted and futured. It's going to be decently, durable. So that's going to be great. You see the belt clip looking good here. And I have toned down some of the weathering, and I think overall it's a decent looking rendition. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on this wire as well. The wire itself has to be kind of strung along in a very particular line. It has to start here from this one hole. It has to go along the top of the body, step down here at the handle area, run along the little channel between these two, grips, and then it has to come up to the side and right along the side of the belt clip area, and then up through the bottom insulator area and glued up in the inside. So it's going to be a little difficult to get everything to fit in together, but I've got a great idea. Let me show you what I plan on doing. So I'm going to go ahead and poke several holes into the lightsaber hilt itself. So we're going to start our first hole right about there. And I have a pin vise with a bit chucked in the end of that, and we're going to use this to slowly hand drill some holes all the way down the hilt. And this is going to allow me then to take some wire and push wire up through the hole, looping it around the red wire and taking it back down the hole, which then I will tighten, twist, and get this thing secure and then tie it off down there. So it gives the impression of it being stapled to the body. Now, if you guys will look back and Google, Kylo Ren lightsaber prop, you'll see the original one that they used on the movie set, and it was made of rubber. The red wire is being held in by what looks like staples. So I think if I use wire and I drill some holes through the hilt, I can give it that appearance of having it stapled to the actual hilt itself without having to try to staple through, hard plastic. So I think this is going to be a decent, rendition of the lightsaber wire itself. All right, so I'm going to feed a bit of wire up through the hole and the other side down and around the red wire and back up through the hole. Then I'll take some pliers and I'll rotate it up and pull it tight. I really want to make sure that these are tight. So we're going to go ahead and use some pliers and our fingers and really cinch this wire down so that it gives it that really awesome look. All right, everybody. So I went ahead and cut the wire down and I epoxied it up inside along the insulator. And I think it's going to look the part. It looks super cool. I love the red color. I have actually overcoated the majority of the lightsaber with this oil wash made from Tester's rubber and Tester's flat black. And this is really awesome looking. This is the lightsaber as it stands now. The Kylo Ren lightsaber hilt by Hasbro, redone to give it a little bit more interest, a little bit more character, and to look a bit more realistic. So this is what we have. I have to tell you, this thing turned out beautifully. I could not have asked for a nicer project. So up at the top, we of course scratch built the main emitter. We scratch built the whole section in there. Now we've also did a little dry brushing with the copper around the emitter. We airbrushed the metal effect here on the side vents. We used the 11/16 sockets on both the side vents. This is a real cool effect. It's not perfect, but I think it looks decently, realistic. We've got the paint in here. The blue wires are showed. Everything is doctored down. Everything is weathered. We've dry brushed a good portion of the material that would have been rubbed on by gloved hands or anything like that. That's looking actually really cool. The wire has been tacked in with simple 5-minute epoxy, and it's been roped down and tied down with wire to the hilt itself. You can see on the side here some of the subtle weathering where the electronics would have been, like that button there to turn the lightsaber off and on, and then where you would have held it, it's rubbed it a little bit more to make it look like it's been used. This thing turned out beautifully, and it's very different from the way I initially bought it. It looks very cool. So I got to tell you guys, the lightsaber is done. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this lightsaber rebuild. This Kylo Ren lightsaber looks fantastic, and I'm super proud of it. Hopefully you guys get a kick out of it. We'll see you next time on Ben Builds. And until then, happy building, and may the Force be with you.